Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the PTR. Today we're on Frost Death Knight, and we're going to be going over the Frost Death Knight changes. So, to kick it off, this is like one of the most least expected changes I anticipated, to be honest, and I don't think anyone else has really actually said anything about this yet. At least to my knowledge, there are new rune forgers, or rune forging enchants, I guess is what you'd call it. The new ones being Rune of Unending Thirst, Rune of Apocalypse, Rune of Spell Warding, Rune of Sanguination, and Rune of Hysteria. I'll read these off for you in order of what I think will be the best and most used to, I guess, the least used. So, starting off with it, I think Rune of Hysteria can be decent, depending if you... I think this would be really good as a dual-wield Frost Death Knight. So you have two... Which I don't... Well, I'll get into this later. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, Rune of Hysteria. Engrave your weapon with a rune that increases maximum rune power by 20, and your attacks have a chance to increase runic power generation by 20% for 8 seconds. So, 20% increased runic power generation, and maximum increase to your runic power up to 120. Next is Rune of Sanguination. I really want to try this out. It seems like it gives your Death Strike and Execute effect, which really strong on really any Death Knight spec because you're healing and executing someone, but I want to see this specifically with a Blood Death Knight. Engrave your weapon with a rune that causes your Death Strike to deal increased damage based on the target's missing health. When you fall below 35% health, you heal for 48% of your maximum health over 8 seconds. That seems really strong to me, especially as a Blood Death Knight. But just generally as a general Death Knight, again, if you're playing Frost, Rune of Fallen Crusader, and then Rune of Sanguination on your offhand, this seems really, really broken, and I hope they don't change it so I can actually test it out. Next, Rune of Spell Warding. Engrave your weapon with a rune that deflects 3% of all spell damage, and taking magic damage has a chance to create a shield that absorbs magic damage equal to 10% of your maximum health. Longest sentence Blizzard has ever put in this. So, 10% maximum health shield, deflects 3% of all spell damage. When an enemy damages the shield, their cast speed is reduced by 10% for 6 seconds. The cast speed reduction, not really that important, but the main important thing here is 10% of your max health is a shield for magic damage. Again, really good against warlocks, casters, generally anything that does magic damage. And then, what I'd say would possibly be the best for leveling here, Rune of Unending Thirst. Engrave your weapon with a rune that increases your movement speed by 5%. Additionally, when you kill an enemy that yields experience honor, you heal for 5% of your maximum health and gain 10% haste and movement speed. Again, if you're like a Frost DK, you're running dual wield Fallen Crusader on the main hand, Unending Thirst on the offhand. I think this will be a general theme that will follow. I don't think Fallen Crusader will be ever be replaced, just because it gives so much strength, 15% strength. However, this would be... I guess these other runes are something worth noting in certain situations, so like, against a caster... Oh, I forgot, this one's kind of important too. However, I didn't mention it because it seems like it's super RNG, and I don't like RNG. A lot of people don't like RNG. So that's why I didn't mention it. Engrave your weapon with a rune that gives your ghouls' attacks a chance to apply one of the following debuffs to the target. Death, healing reduction, war increases damage taken from the Death Knight, famine reduces the damage dealt to the Death Knight, and pestilence just slows the target and deals damage over time. However, this will really only apply to Unholy Death Knight, so this is something that you're going to have to replace your Fallen Crusader enchant with, which kind of makes me sad. But again, I'm sure people will do some testing and see which one is the best out of all these for Unholy. But yeah, new runes. New rune forging. I didn't expect it, but I appreciate it, and it's something that I do want to test out further on the PTR. So, getting into actual talents, what is now baseline, guys? Talking about baseline abilities that weren't baseline in general, we have Anti-Magic Zone. Anti-Magic Zone is now just a baseline, essentially AMS, except for multiple party members, and on a 2-minute cooldown, 30-yard range. Place an Anti-Magic Zone for 10 seconds to reduce the spell damage taken by party or raid members by 20%, and this is baseline, no longer a PvP talent, and will, I'm assuming, be used in raid counters very, very heavily for that 20% damage reduction. Death Coil is now baseline. The damage it does isn't really noteworthy, but the healing it does is something to be noted. Heals for about 1/10 of my health every cast. And Lichborn. Draw upon unholy energy to become undead for 10 seconds, increasing leech by 10% and making you immune to charm, fear, and sleep. Good against warlocks, however the main thing we do want to take away from Lichborn is the fact that it makes us an undead, and if you are an undead, you can death coil yourself and heal yourself, something that could be very nice in some situations. Going into Frost-specific stuff. Frost-specific abilities. Frostworm's Fury. You may recognize this as a certain talent in BFA, and you may also recognize this as the artifact ability from Legion. Pretty much does just a shit ton of damage and slows people within a 40-yard range in front of you. Not much to be explained there, and I don't think anything else really needs to be explained except for Might of the Frozen Wastes. While dual wielding, your Obliterate and Frost Strike also strike with your offhand, and each weapon can be engraved with a Runeforge enchant. Wielding a two-handed weapon increases Obliterate damage by 35% and increases the critical strike chance. Increases the chance for your auto attacks critical strikes to grant Killing Machine. And that increased chance to grant Killing Machine is pretty much to make up for the lack of attack speed and lack of another weapon that would proc those more killing speed procs. Something I do want to address here, before I really get into like rotation and talents and everything, is I don't know personally which one is better. From my own testing, it seems that Obliterate for the most part hits the same whether you be dual wielding or using a two-hander. Same thing with Frost Strike, kind of. I think Frost Strike hits a little bit lower if you're a two-handed Frost Death Knight, and it hits somewhat harder if you're a dual-wield Death Knight. The reason behind this is with only one two-hander, you have one chance to crit. With two one-handers, you have two chances to crit. More crit equals more damage. That's all I really want to say about it. This will be something that I will test further on in the PTR and in the beta, if I ever had one, Blizzard. If I ever got a Blizzard beta invite. Okay, let's get into talents. Talents, nothing really changed here. Yeah, no, I don't think anything changed here. Hypothermic Presence, I believe, is a change. This used to be, I believe, like your auto attacks generate a shield, but now I believe this will be like the go-to talent in almost every situation. Embrace the ice in your veins, reducing your runic power cost of your abilities by 35% for 8 seconds. Does not trigger the global cooldown. So, reduce the runic power cost of your abilities by 35%. So let's say we are attacking this guy. Let's build runic power, right? So, 25% we'll use Hypothermic Presence, which I don't have barred. Just kidding, it's right there. 25 rune power. Oh. But it doesn't reduce on the tooltip. Okay. That is not what I anticipated happening. Reducing the runic power cost of your abilities, but it didn't reduce the runic power of Frost Strike. I'm really hoping that's bugged. Otherwise, they need to update the tooltip to be reduced whenever you proc that. Shout out Blizzard. So going into just normal talents, I guess, going over it as to what I'd take. Inexorable Assault or Icy Talons. I like Icy Talons more, just because I get more Killing Machine procs. However, a lot of Frost EKs favor the Inexorable Assault just because of the extra Frost damage. For the 25 row, Horn of Winter. Don't think I've ever taken this in my life. I liked it a lot better when it was just a buff that was applied. The two choices you're going to do here is Runic Attenuation and Murderous Efficiency. Personally, I just like Rune Attenuation, but if you're going two-hand, I'm pretty sure two-handed Murderous Efficiency is better, and if you're doing two one-handers, then Runic Attenuation is better. For the 30 row, we don't talk about it. You get increased Death Grip range, Asphyxiate, which is just a stun, choke, and Blinding Sheets, which is what we have currently. For the 35 row, Frost Scythe for Mythics, of course. Frozen Pulse if you're dual-wielding, for the sweet, sweet auto-attack damage. Frost damage, and then personally my preference, casting Howling Blast with Rhyme just does damage. It's just extra damage built into your rotation that you don't really have to manage and or think about. So that's my go-to. Death Pact because it heals you. Don't think any of these are really that great aside from Death Pact. Wraithwalk if you really need the movement speed and shit, but Death Pact if you just want the healing. For the 45 row, as I've said, Hypothermic Presence seems to be fairly strong if it actually works, Blizzard. And for the 50 row, this is the one you're going to change out the most. I personally am obsessed with Ice Cap just because of increased strength. Obliteration, while Pillar Frost is active, Frost Strike and Howling Blast always grant Killing Machine. Have a 30% chance to generate a rune. This, I mean, you can use it. However, this is the one I'd use the least. Personally, I'd use Ice Cap and Breath of Sindragosa. And by the way, Breath of Syndegoza hasn't really changed. 428 frost damage every 1 second to all enemies in front of you until your runic power is exhausted. Deals reduced damage to secondary targets. 2-minute cooldown, 16 runic power per second. Again, I like Ice Cap. I don't like using my brain too much in PvP/PvE, so Ice Cap's what I take. However, I do think Breath of Syndegoza, if you are doing Arena, or just really want Potent Burst, I think it will be the best. Going into changes into the Honor talents. Dome of Ancient Shadow increases the spell damage reduction effect for your AMZ by 60%, so with this talent, you will be getting 80% damage reduction from your AMZ. Again, really strong, especially because you can apply it to teammates/4 teammates. And I don't think anything else here has really changed, which, kind of sad to see. I love the introduction of new Honor talents for multiple classes, because I think Honor talents arguably are more fun than normal talents they put in the game, but that's just my opinion. I guess the build I'd probably go is like this. Transfusion for the Death Strike healing reduction, also runic power generation, AMZ for the damage reduction, and of course Chill Streak because it's Chill Streak and just does a shit ton of damage. So, now that I've gone over kind of the pre-rotation stuff, I'm going to talk about the rotation itself and my concerns with, I guess, two-handed and dual wield being, I guess, in the same spec, but like one seems strong. At least in my opinion, right now, currently on the PTR, as I'm playing, dual wield seems better than one two-hander. That's just how it is. That's what I've seen from the numbers. It's what I've seen from my DPS testings, all of that. It just feels better too. I feel like there's more rune generation, and you're not starved for runic power nearly as much. So, before I get into the rotation, I do want to mention, there is no longer global cooldown on a lot of our abilities. There is no longer global cooldown on Empower Rune Weapon, and there is no longer global cooldown on Pillar of Frost. This is something that should just be noted, and it is why I have macros now. So, let's get into it. Let's go into the normal, kind of basic rotation. We'll use our cooldowns here, just bursts in general, I guess. This is, for the most part, what I imagine the Frost Death Knight rotation will be, as you are just smacking, using Obliterate and Frost Strike. The reason I'm saying Frost Strike doesn't seem to be as strong when you're using a two-hander is because it only hits one time, and it hits for about, non-critting about 800, critting about 2000. I've noticed that as I play with two one-handers or a dual wield, the Frost Strikes, I feel like they crit more, and you obviously just have more Frost Strikes, and you aren't runic power starved nearly as much as with two-handed. So about 5k DPS there. And that's not actually accurate because these are actually off-leveled. So I should really be testing this in Mugenbala, but I'm just far too lazy to go there. So we're testing here. So now we'll do two-handed, or sorry, two one-handers. Again, two one-handers not really going to change a whole lot in the rotation. The only thing that will change is your offhand damage. And again, we'll go ahead and demonstrate two-handed. So you'll notice, maybe I'm just smoking crack, guys. Just let me know in the comments, but I honestly feel like Frost Strike hits harder with two one-handers. I don't know what it is, and as I say, oh, the runic power generation's way better with two one-handers. I go rune starved. So essentially the rotation doesn't change when you go from two-handed to two one-handers. The only thing that I'd say really changes is your Obliterate damage. I feel like Obliterate hits a little bit less using dual wield. But however, this will be changed, of course, in the further Shadowlands, because Obliterate damage is going to be increased by 20%, and Obliterate will also deal frost damage whenever you have Killing Machine. Something to be noted, and I'm putting money on it, that two-handed will overtake dual wield in the future. So something I really want to focus on right now is pretty much our healing. Our healing capabilities right now seem to be really, really strong. Let's pop Transfusion, Hypothermic, and see how many times we can Death Strike. I'm not sure if like Hypothermic Presence is bugged, but it seems to not reduce the cost at all. Okay, now going into the actual thing I wanted to talk about, not only do you have crazy amounts of Death Strike healing through Transfusion and Hypothermic Presence, but you also have your own kind of healing. And this is granted to you by Lichborn and Death Coil. And I believe my macro should work, as long as it, works as intended. All this macro is Lichborn / cast target equals yourself Death Coil and / cast Hypothermic Presence. So let's try it out. Death Coil. I hate to see that Hypothermic Presence is just completely bugged right now. I'm assuming that it was working previously. I'm really bummed out it's actually not working, because, again, with Hypothermic Presence, it's so flexible. You can use it to increase your damage, you can use it to get more Death Strikes off, you can use it to use Lichborn Death Coil healing. It seems to be way more flexible than the other talents, so that's why I'm saying it's the best. However, of course, I didn't know it's bugged out right now, so, yeah. Kind of a shame to see that, but that's Frost Death Knight. Nothing really changed here. Going over it again, we have that Frostworm's Fury on a 3-minute cooldown. Lots of global cooldowns are now gone with Pillar of Frost and Empower Rune Weapon. Chill Streak still being really broken. Hypothermic Presence, Runic Power Reduction seems really strong if it wasn't bugged. AMZ baseline, 80% magical damage reduction seems really, really strong as well. We still have Death's Advance. We still have Icebound Fortitude. We have Lichborn now. We also have Raised Dead, which I didn't really talk about because honestly it's pretty forgettable. However, it is just a 2-minute cooldown, summon a ghoul, and this will be somewhat stronger once you get Sacrificial Pact. Sacrifice your ghoul to deal damage and heal yourself for 25% of your maximum health, so even more healing on top of Death Coil and Death Strike. And don't forget about the Rune Forging. If you're a Death Knight main out there, I'd highly suggest you actually test out the Rune Forging procs, because they seem like they can be very strong under the right player. The main ones being... I really want to see Death Knight try out Rune of Sanguination. I want to see Unholy try out Rune of the Apocalypse. And I want to see... I guess just leveling. I want to see how OP Rune of Unending Thirst is. But so yeah. New runes. Death Knight's looking good, honestly. It's looking pretty fun. At least Frost is. I'll get into it in another video. Thanks for watching, guys. I like to go on tangents a lot. If you guys like the video, hit a thumbs up, like, subscribe, check out the Twitch, check out the Twitter. All of this jazz should be in the description. As always, guys, thank you for watching. Until next time, guys, take it easy.